Hi, this is my video review of Shaintar. Shaintar is a high fantasy setting for the Savage Worlds RPG. There are a lot of high fantasy settings out there. You've got Forgotten Realms, Eberron. So you may be wondering, why should I get this setting? It's probably very generic, but it does have very special thematic and rules related differences that distinguishes it or sets it apart from other settings. Well, let me talk about the quality of the PDF first. The PDF is pretty good. It has some excellent illustrations like the one I just showed you, and it has hyperlinks and a virtual table of contents. However, there are some disappointing aspects to it. For example, you get a map, but the letters are incredibly small for each of the cities and adventure sites, and even if you zoom in, they look very pixelated. I recommend that you visit shaintar.com if you get the book, because they have a bigger version of the map there and even separated by regions. And I think they could have also included more information about the campaign setting itself. They give you like a very I don't know, very loose or general outlook of what's going on geographically and politically, but they could have detailed a bit more about the cities and the borders and details like that. Well, let me talk about the theme first. The theme of Shaintar is basically mythology and history are one. Gods and demons and angels are fighting for the fate of a planet. And so the warriors of that place are going to be fighting alongside their deities and the emissaries of such deities in it feels like kind of like a cosmic struggle for the planet, and that everybody has a large stake on the outcome of this conflict. You're going to have your light gods and your corruption gods and betrayer gods and newly born gods, and you get all sorts of over-the-top things related to this epic conflict. And the characters in Shaintar, because of the rules and the theme, feel very powerful. They feel kind of like Legolas, Aragorn and Gimli in Lord of the Rings, where they could jump right in the middle of a bunch of orcs or Uruk-hai and they would come out with just a few scratches. The characters here feel very much like that, even at lower ranks. And well, let me talk about the races, because of course to carry out this game you need a good variety of races with unique features. Well, they are a bit different from the average group of races you get in a high fantasy campaign setting. Most of the high fantasy campaign settings include a lot of humanoids and a few maybe have constructs or a bit monster-like creatures to add to the party. But here all of the races feel very different and very special. For example, the Aevakar are a very rare winged offshoot of the Fae. They pretty much look like birdmen, and they can fly right from the start. They excel at archery because each race has a power and different edges and abilities, and which of course allows for you to give a lot of interesting combinations and customization options during the character creation process. And you have the Alakar. The Alakar, they're basically elves who are closely bound to the realm of Shaintar. They feel a bit like wood elves, but not exactly. You have the Brinchi. The Brinchi are pretty much, I hope I pronounced that right, I think it's Brinchi. The Brinchi are kind of like half lion or half tiger humanoids, very agile and very strong. However, they have this stigma that people feel that they are very much related to demons, so they sometimes people are afraid of them or have that, I don't know, that predisposition to hate them or mistrust them. You also have the Dragordian. The Dragordian are basically very powerful lizard men with mysterious abilities. And you have the dwarves. They are pretty much your standard definition of dwarven warrior, the stubborn and tough dwarf. You have the Eldakar, and the Eldakar are the oldest and most influential of all the races of Shaintar. They are the most powerful in magical terms. They have this like sort of alien or or a wondrous feeling about them. They are like a mystery. You have the goblins, and the goblins. One thing about this game is that the goblins, orcs, and ogres and are not exactly the bad guys here. If they have the same objectives and the common foes that the characters have, they are going to join and cause little trouble in the party. They do have some differences, cultural and ideological differences compared to other races, but you can mostly get along pretty well with them. Look here, you get an illustration of the Eva card, the winged creatures I told you about, the kind of like birdmen. They kind of look like angels as well. And here's an illustration of the Brinchy half lion men. I actually really like half lion or half tiger men. They look pretty cool. Well, and then you get the humans, which are different according to the region or the place they inhabit. You get a Corinthian. Corinthian, one of the most unique races of Shaintar. The Corinthians are the descendants of a veritable horde of half-elves. So they are pretty much half-elves. You get your ogres, and ogres, as I told you, they're pretty much of what you would expect. The big, tough, not exactly the smartest, but they can work together with other characters as long as they are fighting for the same objective. You also get the orc. The orc seems a bit more honorable in this game, like they have a code of honor. Well, the book tells you how to integrate skills and existing hindrances and edges to Shaintar, but they also include a lot of specific hindrances and edges. Some of them related to codes of honor, and some of them are combat related. The edges that make the character look spectacular when fighting. They have the dirty fighter and really dirty fighter edges, or the double shot, the ground fighter. The ground fighter, your hero suffers no penalty to parry or fighting rolls while prone. That's pretty heroic. That's something you wouldn't expect of an average fighter. And you get a lot of gear. Mostly they are racial weapons and racial armor that you can use to further customize your character and to give them a sort of theme. And maybe a member of a particular race was raised by, I don't know, the Brinchy, and he or she specializes in all sorts of Brinchy weaponry. You also get magic, specific spells for Shaintar, and you get some pretty cool things on how to use them here. They kind of act like triggers sometimes. For example, you could cast a spell on a shield so that any enemy that attacks the shield is subjected to a sort of magic trap. And of course you get the setting rules. Now the setting rules for this book are pretty much made to make the characters look good. It's all about giving you the sense of controlling these powerful warriors that pretty much resemble a hero in the Lord of the Rings, like Aragorn, Gimli, or Legolas fighting against 30 orcs or Uruk-hai and not breaking a sweat. So, for example, you get the surprise. It's a surprise rule in which every time a character surprises the enemy, he gets a small bonus. He doesn't need to pull the gaining the drop feature from the core book of Savage Worlds. You can, every time you surprise an enemy, you're going to get a benefit. And you get the covering the distance, the all-out move. In this particular rule, the character can run a lot of feet, cover a lot of ground, and he will attack at the very end for a devastating charge. And this is pretty thematic and cinematic in these types of games, because like in the movies or in comic books, you see this character running, covering a lot of distance in a few seconds, and suddenly attacking the enemy. And you get the rule for bypassing the skull, which is basically attacking the eyes or the mouth or the nose of the enemy for very painful and crippling damage. You also get a lot of special rules related to magic. For example, there are basically more rules so that spellcasters look just as heroic as their melee counterparts, because casters are usually more powerful, but sometimes they don't look as spectacular in some settings. And some things that I really like is that they it gives some rules for all the GM and the players to work together. For example, you get the divine intervention, which is basically an excuse for the GM to drop some divine or corrupted aid during certain scenes. For example, maybe a hero is fighting against a very powerful enemy, and he calls upon the gods for help, and suddenly maybe an angelic being falls from heaven and starts fighting alongside the heroes. But this should be handled very easily, otherwise the game is going to be very without a challenge for the characters. And you also get, for example, Chosen of the Horn, which may basically transform a character in a sort of like an avatar of a certain power. And you also get a Benny that, well, rules so that players can reward bennies to the other, give bennies to the other PCs, so they get different bonuses, and they can use those bennies for when they most need them, because usually it's the game master who gives out bennies, but this way players can also reward the cinematic and spectacular actions of other characters. But of course this should also be kept under watch, because some players may exploit this. And you also get a rule, which is the golden Benny, which is basically giving a Benny to somebody who just had a birthday, or his birthday is coming up, and this Benny is pretty much like a lifesaver. And well, you get some maps for buildings, and so for example, there are certain factions in this game, and the most famous faction are the Grayson's Rangers. And the Rangers are pretty much your guardians of justice, so they give you a map of how a typical headquarters of the Rangers will look like, sorry, and they give you more information about how to carry out epic fantasy campaigns, and a bit more of the history of Shaintar, and they keep giving you that Kingdom Under Fire feeling, because sometimes they're going to have to fight against the beasts of the realm, or other times they have to fight against demons and their dark gods. And some other times they have to fight humans, like inquisitorial paladins. So there's really no rest for these characters. They're always fighting against something and protecting the southern kingdoms from this threat. And you don't necessarily have to be a ranger to keep fighting the good fight. You can be maybe from the Black Lanterns faction, which is basically like a covert ops team in which they protect the kingdoms, but by acting in very, I don't know, sneaky ways, like spying or assassination. You get some good plot point mini campaigns, so you can start playing right away, divided in chapters and very well explained. And you get, of course, an excellent bestiary with different monstrous templates to modify existing monsters. And you get a character sheet just for Shaintar. And well, let me give you my overall thoughts of the setting. As you can see, even though it's not really a large book, it's actually only 186 pages. It has a lot of information, but it does miss a few points. Like I told you, it should have more information about the campaign world, and I think that's the most negative part, basically. I think the campaign part is detailed in a very loose way. There's another book coming up that's another negative point. This campaign doesn't let you take your characters to the very top of the ranks. You're going to, if you want to play as a legendary Shaintar character, you're going to have to purchase the next book that is coming up soon. So I think maybe the other book is going to have a lot more information about the campaign, but it would have been nice if they included a bit more detail about different cities and frontiers and stuff like that. But overall, it's a pretty cool book. If you're looking for high fantasy using Savage Worlds, I think this is the best option so far. And what basically makes it more different is that you have this party composed of different races with different powers, and according to what spells or the skills and edges that they choose, you're going to have a lot of variety in your party makeup, and you're going to experience that epic feeling of fighting alongside gods or against gods. And the character, even at lower ranks, he feels very much like kind of like a superhero, because for example in other games like Pathfinder, the characters are pretty powerful, but you have to to go up a few levels until you start really feeling that sense of power and accomplishment. But here, from the very beginning, you start feeling like you're above the best of the best this planet has to offer to fight against evil. So I highly recommend it. I hope you give it a try. And thank you for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please type them down and I will read them. Thanks for watching. See you later.